I am really pleased to be here, and over the next 5 days, we're going to be sharing some information with you that it could be the first time you've ever heard it, or maybe you've heard it before and just haven't used it. But the money frequency is an interesting concept. It's a concept that I was taught a long, long time ago, and I'm going to tell you, it changes the way you see everything in life. You're going to find, as you start to understand the money frequency and use it, you're going to fall into a very small select group of people. And the small select group of people live a pretty good life. I want to suggest that you make a decision that you're going to really pay attention to what we're teaching here, and that you're going to be here every day for the 5 days. If you really want to see things change, not only attend the 5 days, but we offer the opportunity to go back and watch reruns of it each day. So if you were listening to the first day, you could be listening to it Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and so on. You can keep doubling up on these. And it's the repetition of this information that really makes a difference. Now, it took me a long time to understand that. But I'm going to tell you, when I did understand it and it started to work for me, everything in my life changed. So, on behalf of, we could flip the slides up, please. Who's in charge of the slides here, Tommy? There we go. And then put me away from in front of that. That's it. Now we're doing fine. The money frequency is a concept that not a lot of people understand. And I had it working for me, but I didn't understand it. I was what you call an unconscious competent. I was doing really well, but I couldn't tell you why I was doing so well. And it's a strange thing, but if you keep studying this, it works like magic. Now you'll notice here the lines. If we can blow this up full screen, please. You'll see the lines that we have on the screen. They are to graphically illustrate levels of vibration. Now, of course, it isn't like we've got it here, but there's an infinite number of frequencies. Each one is a level of vibration. Now, everything has its own vibration. Everything in the universe. I have a piece of paper here. This piece of paper has its own vibration. Now, this piece of paper used to be wood into paper. I remember when I was a very young child, I lived in a place called Michipicoten Harbor. It was in northern Canada. My father was working in a pulp mill in northern Canada. We lived in a little log cabin right beside the railroad tracks. And every time a train went by, that little cabin would shake. And the railroad had great, big, huge logs on it. This was pulpwood. I'm 4 or 5 years old. I don't understand anything about it. But they told me they're going to take and turn it into paper. Well, of course, I didn't understand that. But the truth is, that's what's happened. You can take anything and turn it into something else. We take water and we turn it into steam. How? By causing it to change in a state of vibration. Now, when we change in our state of vibration, we change many things in our life. So when we talk about the money frequency, we're talking about something that's pretty powerful. Now, I'd like to go back a few slides here. Hold on a minute. Sandy Gallagher and I came together as partners around 15 years ago. I had been in this business since 1961. And we were doing very well, but we weren't doing anything compared to what we started to do when she became a partner in the company. She was a securities attorney. She understood something about money. She understood this money frequency better than anybody I know. And when you really understand that, everything changes. She really understood that. And she became my business partner. And when she did, this company changed. Now I'm going to flip ahead here a few, just a minute. Let's stop and think about it. So far as we know, we've got one life. And it's really about lifestyle. It's about our contribution. What are we really doing? If we could blow these up full screen for me, please. Thank you. It's about how we spend our days. It's all dependent on how we see our self-image. You see, how we see ourselves is going to determine where we go and what we do. Now, everyone has a story. I want to begin to tell you my story. It's rather interesting from my perspective when I look at it. It may be for you. One day when I was 26 years old, a man sat down with me and he put a big R on a sheet of paper. And he said, Bob, that R represents results. And he said, results always tell an interesting story. They tell the truth. And he says there's three areas that we want to look at in our life: happiness, health, and wealth. Now, I was a very mixed up young guy. I was 26. I really didn't know which end was up. I was the lost soul. This man obviously saw that. And he said, Bob, these are three areas that we really want to pay attention to: happiness, health, and wealth. Then he asked me how I was doing. Well, I wasn't doing very well. And he said, you know, you don't seem to be the happiest guy I've ever met. And he said, I've only known you for a short time, but I see you catching colds frequently. So you're not the healthiest guy. And he said, when it comes to wealth, I've never seen you with any money. Now, if we brought the truth out, I was earning $4,000 a year. If we blow this up full screen, please. But I owed $6,000. Now, I want you to think about that. I was earning $4,000 and I owed $6,000. I was in a bad spot. Do you know that there's a whole lot of people live that way their whole life? They owe more money than they earn. Then he asked me, he said, Bob, do you ever study anything? And I said, I don't know. What do you mean? Well, he said, do you read anything? Well, I said, no, I can't read. Now, that wasn't true. I could read. I just didn't read. You see, I was in a strange place. Most people don't read when they can read. And he said, if you study this book, if you study this book and then do exactly what I tell you, you can have anything you want. Now, I didn't believe that, but I believed he believed it. And I don't know why, but I decided I was going to do exactly what he said. Now, I was 26. I had never done what somebody told me. I'd gone to high school for 2 months. I had no formal education. I had absolutely no business experience. I had nothing to offer people when I went out to look for a job. So here I was earning $4 and owed $6. And I started to listen to him. Now, he suggested that I decide what I want and write it on a card. I've had a card in my pocket ever since then. On the back of this card is a quote by Earl Nightingale. It's a goal card. He said, this great dream, this surging, dynamic thing, invisible to all the world except to the person who holds it, is responsible for every great advance of humankind. I've got my goal written on the card. Now he said, I want to suggest you sit down and decide what you want. Well, I wrote on the card I wanted to have $25,000. Now, I mean, I didn't even know anyone with $25,000. I really didn't believe I'd ever have $25,000. But I wrote it on the card. That's what he said. Write what you want. That's what I wanted. And he said, I want you to start reading that card every day. Read it every day. Now, this was strange behavior for a guy in my position. But I took the card and I'd start reading it every day. Now, I'll tell you what happened, and it's only in retrospect that I'm really aware of this. I started to think of earning money. Up until then, I was not. I was thinking of the problems that I had. I owed all this money. And that's all I was thinking about, is the problems I had. This had caused me thinking of earning money. And because I was thinking of earning, I started to hear people talking about it. There was a guy, his name was Al Phillips. He was talking about earning money. He was talking about it cleaning offices. I thought, I'm not proud, I'll clean offices. But he says, make sure you do it for yourself. I had the opportunity, he showed me where to go where I could buy some used buckets and mops and a used floor machine. I needed $980. I didn't have any money. I couldn't borrow it. I wouldn't have even lent it to me because I knew I was never get it back. It's not that I was dishonest or wouldn't pay people. It's that I never earned enough money to get even. I finally found a guy in a trust company in Toronto that he said, what do you want it for? And I told him, he said, I'm going to lend you the money. Now, I started cleaning offices. The first offices I had, I was getting $15 a time. I washed it twice a month. Then I got another office, $65 a month. First office was Canada Starch on Comstock Road in Toronto. Next office was Kirby's Construction on Wicksteed Avenue. Do you know, by the end of the first year, I was earning $12,500 a month. Now, you annualize that, it comes out to around $175,000 a year. Go full screen, please. Okay. Now think, $175,000 a year. This is in 1961. I had 2 months high school and I had no business experience. That is a huge income. I was nothing but energy moving in every direction. I started to get people cleaning offices for me. Do you know, in less than 5 years, I was cleaning offices in Toronto, Montreal, Boston, Cleveland, Atlanta, and London, England. And I was earning over $1 million a year. Now here I was living in England. I was earning all this money. I had absolutely no idea what the hell I was doing. I was a young guy, no formal education, didn't understand money. You'd find me possibly down on Park Lane at the Playboy Club playing roulette. And I very rarely lost. I went in there with the idea I was going to win, and I generally did. But one day, I come out of there, and I stopped and I thought, it was like I had some kind of euphoric experience. And I realized how just irresponsible I was being. And I thought, what I'm doing doesn't make any sense. And then I started to think, how did this happen to me? I'm not very bright. I'm a young guy, 26, 27 years old, 30 years old. And I'm earning all this money. And I had no idea what it, and I thought, how did this happen? And I couldn't figure it out. Anybody could tell me how my life changed the way it changed in such a short period of time. How did I make such dramatic changes? How did my income go from $4,000 to over $1 million a year? Cleaning offices. How did that happen? And so I made up my mind I was going to figure it out. And I started to study. That's when I really got into this. And I found that you and I are programmed. We're literally programmed. I had changed my program. This is deep in your mind. I had changed my program, and my whole life changed. Now, I have never stopped. And when I figured out how it happened, I suddenly had the strongest urge to teach this to other people. All I wanted everybody to know why so few people are winning and so many people are losing. Now, I want you to think about this for a moment. You're going to find people that are struggling. They're struggling all their life. They never went to school. They're not very smart, and they justifiably have to struggle. Then you're going to find another group that did go to school. They have all kinds of degrees coming off their business card, but they're struggling too. Then there's another group of people. It's a much smaller group. It's only 5, 6, 8%. They are earning all kinds of money. Everything seems to work out right for them. They never went to school. They don't know which ends up. They were like me. But they're winning in a big way. And then there's others you're going to find they did go to school. And they got a great degree, and they're winning in a big way. Now, what I'm trying to get across is you're going to find some people that have done very well, and they deservedly do very well, and you're going to find others that are struggling their whole life. Why is it that this doesn't change? It doesn't change because people are operating with the wrong information, in my opinion. And I decided I was going to start to teach this. And that's exactly what I've started to do. Now, if you will pay very close attention, we're going to show you something that's pretty interesting. Think of it this way for a moment. You've got to study for a period of time if you're going to do anything. If you want to be a plumber, it's going to take you at least 5 years of studying, working at it. Well, there's the book that the man gave me. That's a photograph of the actual book. This is it here. I've been reading this since 1961. Every day I open and read a bit of it. There's the man that gave it to me. His name is Raymond Douglas Stanford. The little boy that he's holding is my son. His name is Raymond Douglas Proctor. I named my second son after Ray. Now, he's a big guy today. That was a long time ago. He's grown up and has his own family now. Ray Stanford became my mentor. He changed the course of my life. It'll never go back to be the same again. Then I moved on. I got that book on October the 21st, 1961. It'll be 60 years ago this Thursday that I started to study this. Then I really got into it, and I came across this man, Leland Valvanderwall. He had to be possibly one of the most brilliant people I have ever met. This is while we were well into studying this. I was working with other people. And we started something called the $1 Million Forum. We were teaching people to earn $1 million a year by setting up multiple sources of income. It was at the $1 Million Forum. I started it actually with Mark Victor Hansen and Val Vanderwell, and then we brought in Jack Canfield. And Mark and Jack started the Chicken Soup for the Soul books at the $1 Million Forum. This is one thing that he taught me that I'll never forget. This deal is strictly between you and yourself. No one else is involved. In other words, don't blame anyone for anything. We've got to take responsibility for everything that happens in our life. Then I met these two gentlemen. Now, I was listening to this, reading this book, listening to a record of this book. Earl Nightingale took this book, condensed it, and he put it on a record. It was called Think and Grow Rich, and it was a long playing record. And I was listening to it, and then I got a hold of Earl Nightingale's Strangest Secret record, and I started to listen to that. One day in a sales meeting, I said, God, I would really like to go and meet him. And one of the men in the sales meeting said, no, you wouldn't. If you wanted to meet him, you'd go and meet him. And I thought, damn, he's right. And so I went and got on the phone, and I phoned Chicago. I was in Toronto. That means they were an hour earlier than me. They're on Central, we're on Eastern. And of course, the office wasn't open, but somebody did answer the phone, and they said, I'm sorry, Mr. Nightingale isn't in, but if you'd like to talk to him, I'm sure he'll call you, leave your number. So I left my number, and a little while later, somebody said, hey, Bob, you're wanted on the phone. I pick up the phone. Hello, this is Earl Nightingale. Well, I almost dropped the phone. That's how he starts all of his recordings. Hello, this is Earl Nightingale. And here he is on the phone. And I told him how much I appreciated what he'd done. I'd really like to spend some time with him. He gave me the opportunity to come down and meet him for an hour. He was at 333 North Michigan, Chicago. And I went down and I met him. And when I was leaving his office, I asked him, I said, Earl, what's the secret? What is the big deal in life? Well, he says, there is no secret. There isn't any big deal. He says, simply a matter of sitting down, decide exactly what you want. Then make up your mind you're going to get it. And don't take your sight off the goal. I knew exactly what I wanted. See, I'd been listening to his recordings for a number of years. I wanted to work with him. And so I made up my mind I would. In 1968, that's me, I was his vice president of sales. I went to work with him. I was like a young priest going to work in the Vatican. Earl Nightingale was absolutely brilliant. Lloyd Conant was another man, absolutely brilliant. And they became my mentors. Now I had Ray Stanford, then Leland Bell Van de Waal, then Earl Nightingale. See, I was working with absolutely brilliant people. I was getting an education. I was learning something that most people never learn. Now, the one thing they taught me, that mindset is everything. It's everything. I want you to remember that. If you don't remember anything else today, remember that. Mindset has given me a life most people just dream of living. Mindset will do the same for you. The secret is in your mindset. Now just see, when you take and write your goal on the card, now I've got my goal written here. And I share this goal with Arash, who's a very important part of our company. This goal will happen just as sure as it's going to get dark tonight, because I will not take my mind off it. And that is really the secret. You've got to keep your mind on what you want. That's mindset. Now think of this for a moment. There's John Kennedy, when he was the President of the United States, with Dr. Wernher von Braun, who was the mastermind of the moonshots. President Kennedy asked him a question. What would it take to build a rocket that'll carry a man to the moon and bring him back safely to Earth? Von Braun asked him the will to do it, and he answered him in 10 seconds. He knew exactly what it would take to get anything you want. Get the picture in your mind and hold that picture in your mind. He said the will to do it. The will is a mental faculty. We're going to talk about that. It's a mental faculty that enables you to hold one idea on the screen of the mind to the exclusion of all outside distractions. I knew when I wrote this on the card that I'm going to keep this picture in my mind until I see it manifest in this material world. And it must happen. mindset is very important. Now, I want you to think of this. 5% of success is due to strategy. 95% of success is due to mindset. It's focusing your mind on where you're going. Now, I want to introduce you to a person in our company. This lady is one of the senior executives in this company. Our company operates all over the world. We do millions of dollars of volume in business. We operate in every country in the world. Now, let's keep looking at this. The trick is the goal. You see, the goal becomes your mindset. When you really get this down right, get it on the goal card, write it on a card, put the card in your pocket, and carry it with you every day. See, when I put my hand in my pocket and I touch the goal card, a picture comes on the screen in my mind. It's the picture that's written on the back of the card. Now, I've been doing this since I was 26. 26. I learned to do this a long, long time ago. And I'm going to tell you, it works like a charm. Now, you're going to find people that are laughing at you. They're going to say, that'll never work. I love what James Cook says. Do just once what other people say you can't do, and you will never pay attention to their limitations again. This is so important, okay? It's important that you begin to think. I mean, really think. Albert Schweitzer came from Africa to London. One time he was standing by a plane in London airport, and somebody asked him, what's wrong with people today? And he said he thought about it for a while, and then he said, finally, people simply they don't. And if you want to test this, listen to what most people are saying. Stand back and watch what most people are doing. They're really not thinking. Now look at this. Use these mental faculties to create the world you want, you and your family to live in. And never settle for less. Now here's one of the first lessons in life. These are mental faculties that you and I have been given. There's something that are very big and very powerful. We're the only form of life that have these higher faculties. These higher faculties are in our conscious mind. And these are the higher faculties that enable us to build anything we want. When you see all these beautiful buildings all over the world, you see these. It was through these, utilizing these higher faculties that made the difference. Now, most people know very little about these. You might ask yourself what you know about them. If somebody asked you to give a talk on any one of these, how long could you talk on them? See, the truth is, we've never been taught much about those at all. You can go all the way through school. They do not teach you anything about these. Do you know what we do? We live by these here. We go by what you see, hear, smell, taste, and touch. Now, there are sensory factors. All members of the animal field have these higher factors. I've got a couple of little dogs at home that can hear, see, smell, taste, and touch. But they don't have these other higher faculties. And they're the ones we want to use, want to focus on. Now, as we go through this work and get into it deeper, we will talk more about each one of these faculties. You see, our perception is how we see things. If we change our perception, everything in our life changes. So I want to suggest you give some thought to that. If you come back and watch the replay of this, write those down if you haven't already. Okay? Now, it's all about the mind. Okay? It's really all about the mind. Your marvelous mind. It's how you're utilizing your mind. Understanding the laws governing the mind is essential if you want to harmonize with the money frequency. Can we make that go full screen, please? Thank you. Understanding the laws governing the mind is essential if you want to harmonize with the money frequency. Okay? Now look here for a moment. See, all these lines, all these frequencies, everything we want operates in this area. Everything. I want to suggest that you pick a target for the next 30 days. See, I'm going to listen to this. I'm going to pay attention to what Proctor's saying here, and I'm going to set a target for the next 30 days. Now, I showed you what I did. How I did it, it was over the period of a year. Then I went from earning $4,000 to $175,000 in a year. And I was just paying attention to this information. Didn't know very much, but I kept doing what it suggested. Okay? Now, let's let this circle represent the mind. And we're going to talk about the mind. We're going to talk about how the mind functions. And I think you're going to enjoy it. Now, let's take a look at yourself. We're talking about energy. The mind is energy. You're a mass of pure energy. Like everything, you function on frequencies. You do. Now, if you stood in front of an infrared television camera in a completely dark room, you would see your body as a glistening, radiating, gleaming form. Do you know you got more power in your hand than you would need to light up the building you're in for probably a week? There's about 11 million kilowatt hours per pound of potential energy locked up in the human body. Our body is nothing but an absolute mass of energy. Now, what we want to do is learn how to direct this energy. That's what really made the difference for me. That's when my income went from $4,000 to over $1 million a year. And I've had it much higher than that. That was way back in the 60s. I want to suggest you really pay attention to this. Really pay attention. Your spiritual DNA is perfect. Full screen, please. It requires no modification, no improvement. It's absolutely perfect. This is your spiritual DNA. You see, the essence of you is pure, unadulterated spirit. Now, maybe you've never heard that before. Maybe it doesn't even make any sense to you. It doesn't have to. Just keep listening to me. Keep paying attention. I'll go back up full screen again. Now look at your spiritual DNA is perfect. You are pure spirit. Spirit is all-knowing. Spirit is all-powerful. And is ever-present. Now think of that. You're nothing but pure, unadulterated spirit. You are. Spirit is all-knowing. It's all-powerful. And it's ever-present. So there's a part of you that's all-knowing. There's a part of you that's all-powerful. And a part of you that's ever-present. You may be sitting there and say, get out of here, Proctor. What are you talking about? I know what I'm talking about. Do you understand this subject? I've been studying it for 60 years. That's a long time to study one subject. I'm not much good at anything else, but I'm very good at this. If you will really let me help you, I'll tell you, everything will change. Are you truly what or who you pretend to be? Good question. Okay? You are a spiritual being. And you may say, well, what's this got to do with the money frequency? It's got everything to do with the money frequency. You're a spiritual being. You live in a physical body. Now, most people think they're having a spiritual experience. The truth is, you are spiritual. You're having a physical experience. Okay? You have an intellect. You have an intellect. And with that intellect, you control your emotions. It's the intellect that dictates your emotional state. Now, you know your emotional state controls a whole lot of things. So stay with me here. Okay? It's the intellect that controls the emotions. Okay? Controls the emotions. We want to try and really grasp that because we're going to talk about the intellect. Now, your spiritual being, and let's understand this, spirit is 100% evenly present in all places at the same time. Now, you may agree or disagree with what I'm saying, but if you disagree with it, ask yourself, how much have you studied it? Why would you disagree with something you haven't studied? Spirit is 100% evenly present in all places at the same time. Now, understand this. Spirit operates in a very orderly way. It operates by law, okay? Let these lines, we can go full screen again, please. Let these lines represent levels of vibration. Levels of vibration. Okay? Spirit is the highest form of vibration, and the physical is the lowest. And then the connecting part in the center is the intellect. Now, you see, we're the only form of life that is given this. It's the intellect that enables us to tap into the spiritual side and change the physical. That's why we are moving ahead at such a rapid clip today. Everything operates in the spiritual level, operates on a frequency. What we do is bring it down into form. Now understand this, each level of vibration is hooked up to the one above and the one below. Everything's all connected together. This is very important we understand this. So let's take a look at it another way. Let's say this is a glass of water. And we put heat under the water and we boil it. The water obviously turns into steam. And then the steam turns into air, ether, or gas. Now let's think of this. The ether, the steam, and the water. They are all hooked together. There's no line of demarcation where one stops and the other starts. We actually cause the water to turn to steam, the steam to turn to ether. Well, we can cause energy of one nature turn into an energy of another nature. What do you think money is? Money is nothing but an idea. Money is an energy. Now look here for a moment. Blow this up. Full screen. Spirit, intellect, and the physical. Now you have those intellectual factors. You activate those intellectual factors, tap into the spiritual level. That's where thought is. You pull the thoughts together, and what do? You build an idea. If you hold the idea in your mind long enough, that idea will move into physical form in your life. Now, that's a very big idea. Let's suppose you build an idea having a company. You can get that idea to turn into results because I've done it. Just sit and think and see it. I sat in a den, very small room, in a house in Glenview, Illinois in 1973. I took my pen and I wrote on a pad, I'm going to build a company that operates all over the world. I was the only one there. I had just left working with Nightingale Conant. I had gone out on my own. I said, I'm going to build a company. That was in 1973. I believe it was in March of this year. We were doing a presentation much the same as this. We had 93,000 people tuned into it. And Mikey interrupted me and she said, Bob, I think you'd like to know, we just went into every country in the world. I set the goal in 1973. I reached it in 2021. Why would I stay with the goal that long? Because I understood how it operated, and this is how it's operating. This is absolute law, that you take your mind and you tap in and you can think. You tap into spirit, that's where everything is. And you build a picture of the good that you desire. It must move into form. What did von Braun tell John Kennedy? All you need is a will to do it. Did we go to the moon? No ordinary people can buy a trip into space. They're doing it. Pay attention. This is really interesting. Now let's look here. There's the mind. Okay? Now let's see how the mind functions, because the mind is energy. The mind operates on two different levels. The first level is the conscious, the educated mind. The second level is the emotional, universal mind. Okay? Now that mind manifests with and through the physical body. Whatever's going on in the mind will express itself through the body, will produce the action and produce the results. So let's see how this works. Let's pay some attention here. Let's look at how the mind functions. It's mind and paradigms. The paradigm is the program. In 1934, there was a man, Thurman Fleet. He was very involved in the holistic health movement, and he was very involved in the mind. And he realized mind was an activity, it wasn't a thing. He said, no one's ever seen the mind. In order to gain clarity and eliminate confusion, he said, I'm going to create an image of the mind. No one, understand this, no one has ever seen the mind. So come back here again. Let's look. He said, I'm going to build a picture of the mind, and there it is. And he said, you divide the mind into two parts. There's the conscious mind, there's the subconscious mind, and the body. Now let me say, of studying, this is the most valuable idea I've ever learned. And I feel very indebted to Leland Val Vanderwall for teaching me this. He not only taught it to me, he taught it to me in depth. He burned it into my mind. I have taught the workings of the mind to psychiatrists that never really understood what I was teaching until I showed it to them. Okay? So let's take a look and see what happens here. There's the conscious mind, subconscious, and the body. The conscious mind is your thinking mind. That's your educated mind. That's your intellect. So let's really understand the subconscious mind operates quite different from the conscious mind. The conscious mind can think, therefore it's got the ability to choose. Okay? It has the ability to accept or reject. You don't have to accept what's going on. Why take on negative information and get yourself into a sweat? Your conscious mind also has the ability to originate. Now your subconscious yet must accept whatever you give to it. And it has no ability to reject it. Now get this. You cannot determine the difference between that which is real and that which is imagined. Your mind cannot determine the difference between what's imagined and what's real. It's so important we understand that. So look here for now. Here you are today. Social media, other people, Netflix, podcasts. You're getting inundated with all this information. Now remember, we said you had the ability to eliminate, to reject that information. Most people don't reject it. They just turn it on and keep listening to it. Put it back full screen. Now listen, you have the ability to reject it. You say, get out of here. But most people don't do that. In fact, most people are not even thinking. They leave their subconscious mind wide open, and that stuff goes right in. And what did we tell you about the subconscious? It has no ability to reject. This is so important, and most people say, well, how does that happen? Why does that happen? It's the paradigm, the paradigm. You see, your program. How did that happen? Well, let's take a look at this when we're infants. Here we are as infants, okay? The subconscious mind is wide open, okay? And whatever's going on around the subconscious goes right in. And it has absolutely no ability to reject. And it's through the repetition of this information going in that we build a paradigm. Now look, this happens when we're young, when we're babies. Our paradigm is built. It's all kinds of information coming into our mind from other people, just dumping into our subconscious mind. And that's how the paradigm is formed, in our subconscious mind. And that's how people become what we are. Now let's look at this for a moment. We already have the knowledge and the power to accomplish most anything we want. However, we have not yet developed a clear understanding of how paradigms are formed or how they control our habitual behavior. Therefore, we frequently don't do what we already know how to do. People already know how to do better, but they don't do it. They have superior knowledge, results, which cause confusion and frustration. So here we are here. We've got all this knowledge in our conscious mind. I'm in our subconscious mind. The results that we're getting are not equal to the knowledge that we've got. People know how to do so much better than they're doing. Go back full screen, please. All right? People know how to do better, but they're not doing it. The results they get are not equal to the knowledge they've got. Why? It isn't the knowledge that produces the results. It's the paradigm. It's what's going on in the subconscious mind that produces the results. If you're going to change the results, you must change the paradigm. You got to build a new paradigm, and that probably results in a new self-image, or calls for a new self-image. Now, this is so powerful, and it's so understood. Paradigm is a mental program that has almost exclusive control over our habitual behavior. And almost all of our habitual behavior is habitual. Okay? Stay with me here. I'm going to show you, I want you to look at the areas of your life that your paradigm has an enormous influence over. It controls your perception, which controls how you see things. Your paradigm controls your use of time. Your paradigm controls your creativity. Your paradigm controls your effectiveness. It controls your productivity. It controls your logic. All of these things are controlled by your paradigm and your ability to earn money. Now look it. It's almost like there's a wall around these areas. And every time we go to move out with one of these areas, we hit the wall. What we've got to understand is that we can change all that. We want to understand the second you make up your mind, you're going to change the paradigm. Change it, but you're going to. Those walls come down. When you actually change it, just imagine how your entire life will change as you begin improving any or all of these areas. The change will be huge, and I'll tell you something else, it'll be permanent. Now think of this. If the only thing you changed was your use of time, that's all you changed was your use of time, think of how your ability to earn money would change. The ability to earn money would change by an enormous degree. You must develop a beautiful image of yourself and study to gain a true understanding of your real potential. Now, if you could come back full screen. Because we have a bit of a problem getting this going today, I'm not quite sure what caused the problem. I'm in a place other than where the problem was. And we're going to continue the remainder of this tomorrow. We'll get into the vibrations, we'll get into frequencies, and we'll show you how everything is a frequency. And when you get on the money frequency, you're going to find that everything in your life will start to change. Now, I went from earning $4,000 a year to earning millions of dollars. If I can do it, you can do it. I got Mikey to come on and talk for a little bit about her background and where she is today, because Mikey's background and mine are very much alike. We both came from nowhere. Now, I believe anybody can change their life. I honestly believe anybody can. We have one of the key people in our company. He is the vice president of sales for our entire company. is Arash Vusagi.